Hello, I'm Father Lou Scurti with Friends of the Word, the Weekday Word. And once again, my guest is Msgr Louis Bihr. Hi, Louis.
Hi.
Uh, you've given us a few segments of a lot of information about the illness and disease of alcoholism and your own journey. And I think that's really important. If our audience wants to go back, they can see previous tapings of the journey. We covered Msgr Bihr's issue of alcoholism, how he came to discover that he was an alcoholic. We talked about his ability to function as a functioning alcoholic. And of course, we're talking about Louis, but we're also talking about many, 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 many other people throughout the world who also suffer the addiction of alcoholism. And we're tracing Louis's career in a sense. Okay, so we left off in previous tapings that you went back to the parish, and then you were commissioned to be minister of priest or ministry? Urban ministry. And what did that involve?
Trying to work with the city parishes to bring them together, to help them to work together, to find ways maybe where they could do shared ministry that they couldn't afford, especially and particularly in Paterson and Passaic, in those two cities,
and
Dover.
Why urban ministry? What's your attraction to urban ministry?
Well, I grew up in Paterson. All my assignments at that point had been in the city of Paterson, and I was really interested in that. And I had been part of the Paterson Priest Association, the group we started.
Great. So. It's a weird question. Did your alcoholism play any part of your affection toward urban ministry?
I don't know if the alcohol itself did, but the recovery certainly did, because there's a number of people, obviously, in the city, homeless. Many of them homeless because of the disease. That he could see needed help and weren't particularly getting any help at that point.
Right. Okay. Louis asked me to read a selection from Acts of the Apostles, chapter 9, and then we're going to relate this chapter about Saul, who eventually becomes, as you know, Paul, the great preacher of the Christian faith, and then we'll apply this to Louis' journey. Saul, still breathing murderous threats against the Lord's disciples, went to the high priest and asked him for letters to the synagogues in Damascus, which would empower him to arrest and bring to Jerusalem anyone he might find, man or woman, living according to the new way. As he traveled along and was approaching Damascus, a light from the sky suddenly flashed around him. He fell to the ground, and at the same time heard a voice saying, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" "Who are you, sir?" The voice answered, "I am Jesus, the one you are persecuting. Get up and go into the city, where you will be told what to do." Saul being thrown off his horse onto his backside. Why is that significant for you?
Well, I think it's significant because at some point you have to hit your bottom before you can start to come back up again. And when you hit your bottom is normally when you make that decision to admit that you're powerless over your addiction and you have to do something about it. So
tell our audience what hitting the bottom is.
Well, it's different for different people, different levels. It usually means going back down as far as you can, physically, mentally, and spiritually, to where you don't have much of a choice, institution, death, or making a decision to do something and to begin to rise back up again.
In families, give me one example, again, no names, of someone you saw who hit bottom.
Okay, my sponsor in particular had a huge drinking problem, didn't understand it at all. Got up one day, fell to the floor, found himself at St. Joseph's Hospital, paralyzed from the waist down. On dialysis, told me never walk again. And the doctor said to him, "You know what this is from?" And he said, "No, I have no idea." And the doctor said, "Well, you were in a fight. Nobody punched you." He said, "This is because of your drinking." And when he finally realized that, he decided he had to do something about that. And that's when he made a determination that he was going to fight, go through this, and he is able to walk again. It's 34 years ago. He's done 34 years sobriety now. But that was his bottom.
Before someone on our crew asked you, how many years of sobriety do you have?
I have 32 now.
God bless you.
So thank you.
That's important. And still in the program.
Very much. Yep.
Which is really important.
Yep.
Oh, Also, I mean, there are numerous stories about falling to the bottom of the ladder. Families, financial disasters, abandonment, disengagement from family members, people being literally thrown out. I guess you've heard a lot of those too.
Yes. Oh, yeah. All kinds. Yeah.
Okay, so Paul is thrown off of his horse, and then what happens? Not only to Paul, but in the life of an addict.
Well, I think once we get that person to do that first step, then they begin to come back again. They begin to think differently. They have a different relationship with this higher power that we talked about in the last show, a God that they can understand, that can help them, so they become a more spiritual person. Not religious necessarily, but spiritual, and that they have a spirit within
Maybe
them.
explain that, because that's important, because we are spiritual and religious on this program, but what's the fine line?
The difference in Alcoholics Anonymous is religion is for those people who are afraid to go to hell. Alcoholics are people who have already been there.
Oh, Lord alive, that's great. Well, I got to use that one. You say that again, that's important.
Religion is for people who are afraid to go to hell. Addicts are for people who have already been there. Wow. Recovery.
Okay, so the spiritual component is so significant.
Extremely.
And after your ministry in the city, you got involved in a very special ministry, Straight and Narrow.
Yes.
Explain that.
Okay, Straight and Narrow is a Catholic Charities agency sponsored by the diocese, and its particular mission is to deal with people who suffer from the disease of addiction. There's tons of programs. I want to just talk about the one for addiction right now.
Sure. And because of the name, Straight and Narrow, it's founded on the street.
Straight and Narrow.
Straight and Narrow streets
right.
in Paterson.
Narrow Street's a very little side street. It was actually an extension of Cedar Street. When they wanted to name the organization Straight and Narrow, the city council changed that one little block to Narrow Street. So it's actually Straight and Narrow.
That's
the name of the street.
That's great.
There's a sign here actually that's pretty popular that people actually take pictures of.
Yes. Okay, so you got there.
I went there as the director of pastoral care. The director before had left suddenly, maybe 9 months before, so there had been nobody there for 9 months. The program had pretty much fallen apart, which was a blessing for me because I could come in and start and do my own program the way I wanted to do it. Two of the things I did right away, I began to run 12-step groups for the men, and we began to do a spirituality group for the men and the women.
Much resistance?
No, not at all. Actually, well, 12-step they had to go to. It's mandatory. Okay. The spiritual was voluntary, so it wasn't resistant at all. And that would lead to having actually on Saturday nights a service and an outside preacher come in, many of whom were in recovery, and then beginning to start a mass on Sunday mornings for those who wanted to go to mass if they were Catholic.
Right.
And then making sure we had an imam come in for the Muslims. There's only 1 or 2 Jewish people when we were there, and they weren't particularly practicing at that time when they were there, so we didn't have to worry about a rabbi at all.
Right. Straight and Narrow, how was it founded? I know it's Catholic Charities, but
actually, it was founded by John. What was his last name?
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Anyway, he was a priest from the diocese back in '54, and I believe there's some alcoholism in his family, and he wanted to do something about that. So his family had some money. They helped him purchase a building, and he opened it up as a detox hospital.
And it's that building?
The one building.
And
it's still there.
A factory.
It's still a factory. Yep.
Right.
And the detox hospital's still there. That was the
Great.
main. And in those days, you went for 5 days, and then after 5 days, you had to go back out, and you couldn't go back for 3 months if you sort of fell off the wagon. This thing.
Right. Okay. So the whole program at Straight and Narrow for the alcoholic is typically how long?
Now it's 6 months to a year.
Okay. So it's rehab. Is it does it do career counseling at all?
Not much right now.
Okay.
That's something they're looking to get into, but
so it's medical and AA
and the spiritual.
Okay. If members of our audience wanted to contact Straight and Narrow, besides put Straight and Narrow on, and in good search, put Straight and Narrow.
It's 508 Straight Street in Paterson. The telephone number is 973-345-6000.
Thank you.
Okay.
This has been Father Lou Scurti, Msgr Bihr, discussing his arrival at Straight and Narrow. We're going to continue this. Thank you, Lou.
Thanks
for being here. Thank you.